Ladies and gentlemen, brethren all, welcome to the Working Tools Masonic Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Connor Massey, and with me are my two brothers and colleagues. I'll let them introduce themselves in a moment, but first, it's really important that we clarify that our opinions are our own, and by no means are reflective of the opinions or stances of our Grand Lodge, any other Grand Lodge, or any Masonic body amongst the world. Now, with that said, I'll let Steve introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Steve Chung. I am Senior DMLA from Beaver Chapter in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia, and I'm a past master of my lodge, Prince Charles Lodge here in Kelowna, BC, and I'm a past thrice Pucin Grand Master of the Valley of Vernon. And and a whole bunch of other things that go along with that stuff and all that work, And now on to Dave.
Hey guys, my name's David Barron. I'm a fellow craft mason at the Garibaldi Lodge in Squamish, and I like to draw pictures, so I'm the creative dude.
There you go. And with us today is a guest host, Alan Bolitho. So I'm going to let Alan introduce himself and tell us all a little bit about him.
Hi, I'm Alan Bolitho. I became a ended apprentice in my 21st year, same as Connor did, and went on to become a master of Caulfield Grammarians Lodge. It's an unusual title because in Australia, particularly Melbourne, a lot of the lodges are connected with the boys' schools there. So I went to Caulfield Grammar School, and I was the past master of Caulfield Grammarians Lodge back in 88, 89. I then continued traveling the world and eventually ended up in Vancouver, where I joined the Duke of Connaught, and now here on Vancouver Island, I'm a member of Britannia Lodge. So I'm a past master of Britannia by affiliation. Over to you, Connor.
So we are going to be discussing traveling and visiting other lodges, but I'll let Steve get into the discussion today.
All right. So we wanted to talk about visiting, which is one of the biggest benefits of Masonry. It's how we get to know our brothers in the worldwide brotherhood that we have and we're a part of. And it's guys call it traveling, visiting. It's known by a few different names that way. And there are proper protocols to follow. Let's get that out of the way first. We know that when you go outside your jurisdiction, you have to follow some rules in order to be able to legitimately visit other lodges. And Connor, being the technical guy there, he's got it all figured out. You want to lay those out for us, Connor?
So the way that I understand the rules is that if you say we're all in BC, so say we were going to go to Alberta, because we were talking about Alberta in the last episode. Say we were going to go to Alberta. What we would do is we would contact our secretary of our lodge and say, hey, brother secretary, we're going to Alberta and we're planning on visiting Alberta Lodge. And we're going to go and visit the lodge in Edmonton. So then the secretary would go and contact the Grand Secretary of British Columbia and Yukon and say, hey, we've got these brothers. We've got these brothers who are going to Alberta to visit a lodge. And can you pass along that letter of introduction? So then the Grand Secretary would contact the Grand Secretary of Alberta, and then the Grand Secretary of Alberta would pass along the information to the lodge where the brother was going to visit. And then it would be on the duty of the brother to bring a copy of the letter of introduction along with his dues card, should he be in a jurisdiction that has them.
And Grand Lodge certificate.
And Grand Lodge certificate. Yeah. So it seems like a lot of superfluous work, but from a
regulation standpoint,
it all makes sense.
Yes. Now, it's all well and fine in the ideal perfect world to have a plan like that, which, if you know in advance you're going somewhere, you should follow those rules. Let's just get that out there, right? So now, quite often, things like visiting abroad tend to happen more by chance. You know, you'll go somewhere, you'll meet a brother because he's donning the square and compass, and you know, you end up chatting, you find out there's a meeting, and then you end up going to the meeting. So I end up doing that a lot, just because I'm a very social guy. You know, I meet a guy, I met a guy in the superstore. I see he's got a ring. I say, ah, you're a traveling man. And he comes back to me with, have you been to the East? And then the conversations go from there. And next thing you know, I invite him to come visit the lodge. He's come and visit our lodge, and he turns out to be from Seoul, Korea. And, you know, just happens, right? So, you know, he's here already. He's not going to be having the chance to get to his Grand Lodge and do all that rigmarole stuff, right? So quite often these types of things happen. And every now and then there's guys that like to confirm that you're a master mason by trial. And there's various ways that they do that. I don't know. Is there, does anybody know, is there a specific trial that they have?
I can talk from experience on that. I've actually been tried 3 different times in BC, and all 3 trials were different. Basically, that you run through a short version of your prove up of the 3 degrees. I wasn't asked for my obligation in full, but the usual questions that were asked were done. And there is in Britannia's bylaws, there is actually a version of what is called the Tyler's Oath, where that you actually take an oath on the volume of the sacred law that you are a master mason in good standing and not excluded, etc. So that I've had to do that in 2 of the places where I've had to prove up.
Cool. It's funny. I actually had to prove up once, prove myself when visiting Grand Lodge, because of course I left my dues card in my other apron case. You know? And then I'm registering for Grand Lodge, and they're going, well, you know, I don't know you from a hole in the ground. It's the first time I've gone anywhere and didn't know anybody sitting behind the desk that, you know, there was 6 different guys taking registration. Not one of them knew me. Now, everybody on my side of the desk, they knew me. I had 5, 6 guys. I'll vouch for him. I'll vouch for him. Yeah, well, I don't know you either, they said. So they take me into another room, and, and they're saying, well, you know, prove to me that you're a master mason. So, you know, I started with one of the working tools, and I gave them the working tools lecture. Yeah, well, they weren't too impressed with that. So then I gave them the short version, the ancient version of the address to the brethren. And then, yeah, well, they said that's public knowledge too. I said, well, you know, if you were a 7th degree Scottish Rite, I'd give you the lecture in that. Or if you were a 14th degree, I'd give you the lecture in that, or the, you know, those kinds of things. But I really didn't have anything else prepared, right? 15 minutes of lectures. And they finally said, okay, I've had enough. I've had enough. I believe you.
Well, mine were at the opposite end of it, that I went through the 1st, 2nd, 3rd degree, giving the grip, the token, the words. Where were you prepared to be made a Freemason? Those sort of questions and those sort of answers.
Ah, okay. Well, that's cool.
So that's what I know is going through the 3 degrees on that.
Well, if they'd asked questions, that would have been easy. At least they're leading you, right?
That's right.
I have visited an excessive amount in the year that I've been a Mason, and I have never once been asked to prove that I am a Mason.
That's because everybody knows you.
Now, with it, I can also go back that I was there at your 1st degree, 2nd and 3rd, and I remember the first time you visited, I actually vouched for you.
Oh, did you?
Yep. So that you've had people vouching for you, people that have seen you. Actually, no, sorry, I saw you 2nd and 3rd, not your 1st. But I know and have vouched for you at least one meeting. And that's where the first time I visited in North Vancouver and the first time I visited on the island, I knew nobody here. As it happened, just after I came out of the Prove Up on my second visit on the island, there was somebody that knew me from the previous visit.
Pretty cool. Yeah, my visiting days go all the way back and start with DeMolay. Right now,
Yep.
back in the day, yep, that dates me a while. In Vancouver, there were 17 DeMolay chapters.
Wow.
So there was something to do DeMolay wise 6 nights a week, and if it wasn't something to do DeMolay wise, there was something to do Joby wise, and so it became quite the habit to visit other chapters up and down the Lower Mainland. And, you know, I'll tell you a little bit of a story. When I was 16, I went on the road with the Carnival. That was fun. I was a carny, yep.
It explains so much.
Oh, really? Cool. I'm glad you understand now. So we snuck across the border at Niagara Falls, worked our way down the A circuit all the way down to Daytona Beach, Florida. And then our boss rented a couple floors of rooms at the hotel on the beach and gave us 2 weeks off on the beach.
Nice.
Well, during that time, I looked up the local DeMolay chapter, right, which happened to be almost 2 hours from where I was. But their master counselor and a couple of their other members happened to be coming relatively close to where I was. And so they came a little further and we hung out for an afternoon. We got to know each other a little, and you know, we said our goodbyes, and it was a really cool encounter, right? You know, and then a week later, well, me and the other Canadian, we got the shaft. We came home one day from the beach, and our bags were out on the outside of a locked compound. All the trailers were gone. All the trucks were gone. They left without us, and they abandoned us in Daytona Beach, Florida. Now, on the Carnival circuit, that company gave you what they called cash advances, and then you would have a big paycheck at the end. Well, so needless to say, my buddy, he spent all his cash advances and didn't have any cash. I had a couple $100 with me, but, you know, really wasn't enough to do anything. And I'm sitting there, okay, I'm 16 years old. I'm in the United States. I got down here kind of, you know, on the QT, and how am I going to get home? So what's the first thing I do? I called my DeMolay friends that I made contact with and told them the situation. And their mother got in the car, and they came 2 hours to pick me up, took me home. The father got home from work by the time we got there. They booked me a flight to Seattle, where my aunt lived, and they made up the difference of $60 or something for the flight. And the mom washed my clothes, repacked my bags, and they took me to the airport the next day, got me on a plane home to Seattle, and gave me $20 for food along the way, and just took care of me like I was one of their kids, you know. And that meant so much to me, you know, being taken care of by Brother DeMolay, that, you know, I've told that story so I don't know how many times in my Masonic career, and you know, because that's what it meant. That's what this whole organization preaches about, is brotherhood, right, and fraternity. And what better showing to, or what better experience of fraternity than that, right?
Exactly.
So that was really, really cool.
Awesome. What did you do in the Carnival?
You're being quiet. Have you visited much?
No, I've not visited at all. I'm quite new to the whole thing, and I've only been to Squamish. Feels like I'm visiting every time because it's quite a long drive. But
how many lodges are close to you, Dave?
Squamish and Lillooet.
All right.
2 hours either way.
He's less than an hour and a half to the ones on the North Shore in Vancouver, though. And we used to travel from West Vancouver and North Vancouver to Squamish quite frequently for their meetings, both by car and by motorbike.
Yeah, yeah, we definitely have lots of visitors at Squamish quite often.
You should go and visit the Duke of Connaught Lodge and admire their kilts.
I would like to.
Because I know the guy who made them.
Oh, do you? You got an insider knowledge?
Yes.
What did you do in the carnival, Steve?
I ran a
you a
game called
clown?
the Bowler Roller.
Oh, cool.
That's that big 10-pin bowling ball that you roll over the hump and you try to keep it in the dip.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was just so good at it, right? And I was working at the P&E on the games at the P&E, and they recruited me because during my breaks I'd go over to the bowler roller and I'd make the bell go off, and they just love that. Can you come back again? Can you come back again? And then the boss was there one day, and it was coming close to the end of the P&E, and he said, "Hey, this place shuts down. Do you want to come on the road with us? And I'll put you in charge of this game." Right? And I was like, "Oh, sure, why not?" Right? And I had already gotten my grade 10, and I wasn't going any further in school because I was going for a trade ticket, and that's all you needed back then was a grade 10. So I said, "Sure, why not?" So it was the coolest experience. I had a new girlfriend. That relationship was only 2 months new, 3 months maybe, right? And I did that thing where I promised I'd be good and loyal on the whole trip and everything, right?
Yeah.
God, that was the hardest thing I ever did, man. I tell you, it's nothing like having it thrown in your face and having to turn it down all the time at every stop, right? But it was a good challenge for my moral compass.
That's good.
So, Alan, do you have any interesting stories about when you've gone visiting?
Well, I'll just talk about the benefits of visiting. And in Australia, each state runs one little black book for all the workings, and you have a grand superintendent of workings and district superintendent working. So everybody's lodge workings is very much the same. There's occasional optional lectures and educational lectures, but the Masonic workings are the same. What I love about BC and visiting here is that we have the 4 styles of Freemasonry, and I don't know if you've covered that in a previous blog.
Briefly.
And the fact that of the 9 lodges here in Districts 1 and 21, no 2 lodges do identical work. So therefore, every time you go out, you get to see something different. And even if you've seen the 3rd degree put on by Haida for the 3rd time, you'll still start seeing different things in it. Whereas in Australia and New Zealand, because of the uniformity, it's only the different people on it. But I still enjoyed, back in those days, seeing the younger Freemasons trying really hard to deliver their charges. It's one thing to see an old guy like us standing there and delivering the charge for the 22nd time, but to see the younger junior wardens, senior wardens, or whoever delivering a charge and working really hard at it makes you really proud for them. And that's what I get out of my visiting, is seeing the different work and the different people doing the work over time, and not just leaving it to the same people every time, as well as the fellowship in the South. Well, that's again, I'm working on a lecture on the differences between Victoria and Victoria. Over in Australia, because the junior warden looks after the supper before or after the meeting, you're invited to go to the South. So the supper after the meeting is called the South.
Interesting.
So it's the little differences like that.
That's pretty cool. I know exactly what you're saying with respect to the variations in the district meetings. I mean, it's the same thing here in the Okanagan. We've got 9 or 8 lodges in our district, and though there's 2 ancient lodges, we don't do quite the same work, right? And
Correct.
then you go to those funny Canadian work lodges, and they all do it somewhat similar but different. And then, like I just came back from Cuba, where that was my 2nd trip to Cuba, and So I went and visited Lodge the first time there, and then I went back again and visited them this time that I went back. And the really cool thing is, though, even though it's in Spanish, it's ancient work, and I followed along with everything they were doing.
Right.
Except they do this thing there where they don't spend much time on business, on the business of the lodge, right? They do this unique thing where they talk about their whole conversation in lodge is about either the things that they're doing and need to plan, or the sick and distressed that are not at the meeting. You know, for example, this past meeting I went to, they had 3 brethren that were in ill or distressed circumstances, and one of them actually wasn't himself; it was his daughter, and she was having some medical issues, and for a while they couldn't figure it out, but then figured out that it was a gallbladder or something like that. Anyways, and what they do is the senior warden has a box underneath his chair, and he pulls it out, and it's a special donation box. So you know how we normally have the guys go around with the bag of fraternal assistance, right? Well, they still do that, but they have this special box that they once they talk about the brethren that are in need, then everybody gets up and they go around and they do a special donation into that box in front of the senior warden. And then that money specifically goes to those brothers who were discussed in the meeting and what their needs were. And of course, there's a brother in charge of taking care of all of that and so on, right? But that's one of the really cool things that they do that was different than I've seen anywhere else that I've visited. And most of my visiting is done in my local jurisdiction. I mean, I do in my area. Well, I looked it up on the last 2 calendar years, and I averaged 35 to 45 meetings a year, right? And we have our regular meetings at my lodge. And oh yeah, and then there's Scottish Rite and the Rose Croix and the consistory meetings that I go to, right? On top of those meetings. So I get a lot of visiting in, and I really appreciate the different rituals that are done, just because it gives me something different to try and focus on and understand when I'm there, right? And I don't know, yeah, it gives you a different appreciation for the different workings.
Cool.
Yeah,
I have a question for you guys. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Connor.
No, you go ahead, Dave.
For our more senior members here, is there any lodges in the world that you desire to go visit, and maybe why?
I would love to get to the Grand Lodge of England, to go into the Grand Halls there, and to the Grand Lodge of Scotland. Both of those are beautiful buildings with incredible history. There's some incredible ancient, well, ones in America as well, but the 2 that are on my hit list are Edinburgh and London.
Yeah, those are on my hit list as well. I'm also really interested in going to Mother Kilwinning #0, as well as I'd really like to go to the Grand Lodge of Japan.
Ah,
you know, I had a brother came back from the Grand Lodge of England and did a report at our lodge. And, you know, he did a bit of a slideshow, shared a bunch of pictures and so on. And it was just beautiful. The architecture and the craftsmanship was just second to none, right? Mm-hmm. So being that I knew I was going back to Cuba, I really wanted to go and see what their Grand Lodge was like. Because the first trip that I went there, I went to the building, but I couldn't go in and go up in because nobody was there. And I didn't announce myself that I was coming, right? So this time, I actually went there just to see, because we were doing a tour downtown and whatnot. And the building manager was there, and I actually got to meet, because he was giving a tour to the Grand Master of Chihuahua, Mexico. And so I got to meet
a little guy?
Yeah. right?
Little furry guy.
Yeah. He was, right? Now he's a little shorter than me. I got pictures. I'll share it one day. And
Terrible.
I know, but one of those things. That was the name. So, anyways, while we were there, they took us on the tour, and so we got to see. There's 9 lodge rooms in the Grand Lodge of Cuba. Okay, and then there's the big main Grand Lodge room. Okay, I never got to see that because it was under repair, and he had no access because it was under repair. Okay, so he took us through the 9 other rooms, and I'll tell you, it gives me a whole other appreciation. Did you know 5 nights a week there are 9 meetings happening in that building?
Damn.
You
Wow.
go into there, and I was expecting, because I'd seen pictures of other Grand Lodges and I've been to many different lodges, I was expecting something very grandioso. The majority of their lodge rooms were no more than 20 feet wide by 30 or 40 feet deep at the most, okay? And they were all in disrepair. Ceiling tiles missing, water damage coming down the wall, paint peeling off, all these defects, and it was like normal for these guys. And without a ton of money going into it, it never gets fixed, right? And it was really an eye-opener, because when I went and visited the lodge in Cardenas, those guys took a lot of pride in their building, and those members of that lodge went and did the work and fixed it up, and they're always maintaining whatever needs to be done, right? And no sign of distressed building inside, right? It was quite different that way. So, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. You just made me think there's another lodge that I really want to visit at some point in my life, and that's Chelsea Lodge.
Where's that?
Chelsea Lodge meets at the Freemasons Hall in England. But it's in order to be a member of Chelsea Lodge, you need to be in the entertainment industry. So you need to be a musician. You need to be a theater actor. Anyone can visit, but to be a member of the lodge. So when you hear about like the famous people in England who are Freemasons, 90% of them are members of Chelsea Lodge.
Interesting. Britannia's lucky enough to have a thespian as one of its past masters, who does some of the most brilliant lectures in both that and in the Scottish Rite. And I won't name him, but I'm always in awe when he does his, he delivers it so alive, because he actually is a stage actor.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, it was actually something I've noticed listening to other podcasts where there's, I forget what they call those kinds of lodges, but they're theme driven, whether they're an academic lodge from a college or whether they're a sports. What's that?
Specialty lodges.
Yeah, special interest lodges, right? And yeah. I thought, those I thought, hey, that'd be kind of cool to have here. And then it was like, that's like starting a whole new lodge. I'm not retired yet, so I can't really go into that endeavor, right? But I thought that'd be kind of cool. Maybe having a DMLA lodge would be.
That's
really cool.
The very logical one, is to have just everybody that's ex-DMLA. But see if you can get a Carney Lodge going. That'd be entertaining.
Yeah, well, I don't know. They have weird hours, and they're always on the road, so I don't know that
they could have a meeting at 10 in the morning, because most Carneys don't get going to midday.
Yeah, that's right too. Hey, I noticed on our YouTube channel we got a comment from Brother River Peatman. On the 3rd, he's going to Seattle to visit a chapter in the United States. Has anybody ever gone to the United States to visit?
I have.
Yeah?
Yeah. But that was part of an organized group, a fraternal visit, or was that just you going down and visiting?
It was for DMLA when I was the Provincial Master Counselor of British Columbia, and I went down to go to Washington DMLA's Grand Lodge equivalent, which in DMLA terms is called a conclave. And I went down with a group of people from my mother chapter, which is Phoenix chapter here in Victoria, and it was a lot of fun.
But,
Victoria.
to River's question, I would just make sure that he does do secretary to Grand Secretary of Chapter across, or
especially sees how he's going to the States.
Fun?
Especially sees how he's going to the States. They're pretty sticklers for rules.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
when it comes to DMLA Canada and DMLA International are technically separate bodies. They acknowledge one another, but it's not under the same governance. So if you're going to be heading down to well, it depends. River, if you're going alone, you would need to make sure that your executive officer knows and contact the executive officer, and then he would contact the Shuckanut chapter in.
And River's commenting that they definitely are aware, which is great.
Okay, good, yeah. But if you were going with a group, then really it would be down to the advisors to do all that. But yeah, so my advice to you would be to just go and have fun, get to know some of your brethren down in the
Chuckanut
down in America.
Yeah, that's Bellingham.
Is it?
Yeah, Chuckanut.
And nobody there is going to be old enough to remember who I was. So I've been to Chuckanut chapter half dozen times in my years, but that was a long time ago.
Okay, we're talking about visiting. My wife had the pleasure of a conference in Reno last May, and with that, I looked up and saw that one of the lodges had a website. I contacted the secretary directly because meeting on the Monday when I looked like I was going to have a spare day has been the other half at a conference, and they insisted that I do the formal process of my secretary contacting Grand Secretary in Nevada through to the lodge that way. He wouldn't even answer my question what the dress code was for the meeting until the Grand Secretaries had all made their contact.
So you never did get to visit?
Never did get to visit.
Right.
But when I did my first visit here in Canada, I contacted Grand Lodge in Vancouver. They contacted my Grand Lodge in Australia because I was demitted, got my Masonic record, and then said, okay, who are you going to visit? And they forwarded it on to the secretary, so they knew I was coming. But I still had to prove myself, even though I had the introduction from Grand Lodge in Vancouver.
Right. So, another interesting, I guess, call it a benefit from visiting is, so in our area, if you cross the bridge, there's another 6 lodges in District 10. And so really Freemasonry in the Okanagan travels from the U.S. border at Oliver Osoyoos area all the way to Revelstoke, right? And back in 2007, I met my now wife, my second wife, and she had a 5-year-old boy. And, we would go places and do things up and down the valley, right? And, I think a couple of years in, 2-3 years in, we're down in Penticton and we go to Tickleberries, which is an ice cream place there. And I meet a brother from Osoyoos, right? It just happens to be there, right? And we go through the line and we're chit-chatting the whole way through the lineup and all that, and we go outside and we're eating our ice cream, and the kid says, Mom, I don't know about him. Just everywhere he goes, he knows somebody, right? Because 3 weeks prior, we were in Revelstoke, met a couple brethren there at the hot springs place, and
Hot place.
the hot springs hot tub place there that they got, Canyon Springs or whatever. And then we stop in Vernon, and of course I know somebody there, and we meet. I think we're at the Starbucks there, and of course I'm meeting everybody everywhere for several years. He goes, "Isn't there any place we can go that you don't know somebody?" And I said, "No, I don't think so."
Antarctica.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess I haven't been to Antarctica.
The last I heard that the Aussies had a travelling lodge down there.
Okay, I'm going to add another lodge to my bucket list of lodges I want to visit.
Yeah.
I want to go to the Antarctican Lodge.
Yeah. The Scott base down there. Well, it depends who's on the 12-month rotation, but I have heard of at least one time there was a travelling gavel there.
Cool.
Let's go do a podcast live from Antarctica.
Podcast trip.
Yeah, there we go. Speaking of traveling gavels, does DMLA Canada still have a traveling gavel?
We have the Galloping Gavel. I believe.
You have it? You still have it? The big 4-foot one?
Yeah, I believe my chapter, Phoenix chapter, still has it.
Excellent. Excellent. How far back?
Fraser Valley chapter had it for a bit, but on the official visit there,
you stole it.
We stole it.
How far back does the book inside go?
I'm not sure. I would have to ask someone at Phoenix chapter to look.
Okay, well, if it goes back to the early 1900s here, you'll find me all over it.
Good.
Yeah, we used to. Well, back when there were 17 chapters, it was a pride and joy to be able to claim that you had that, right? And to have it sitting up in your east, right? And so Beaver chapter, being the cool guys with all the hot cars and hot girls, we'd be active and we'd be going everywhere because the more guys you could fit into an Austin Mini, the more chances you had of getting that gavel, right? Because it was also based on the number of guys from your chapter, right?
Does your carny past help get all the clowns into the Mini?
Yeah. Right.
Professional.
Kind of drifting back to Blue Lodge a little bit. One of the complaints that I hear the most when I go and visit other lodges is that, oh, we're so glad you're here. We almost never get visitors. And I think that the only way that you're going to get visitors at a lodge is if that lodge goes and visits.
I was about to say, and if you ask them how many of your brethren have visited other lodges in this last month, and you'll find that probably none.
Probably none. And something that I heard of, I've got a few friends who are currently senior wardens, and they've been told that their year as senior warden, what they need to do is they need to go and visit.
Correct.
The entire year is just them visiting.
Because that's how they'll end up getting both the number of visitors at their installation, and I was at an installation last week where there were 75 of us there, which was great. And it is also the way that they'll end up with the people doing the installation team, because they'll know the past masters of the different lodges and the other brethren in.
And the sad part is that they haven't started visiting.
Pardon?
And the sad part is that prior to being senior warden, they haven't started visiting, right?
Well, that's where Britannia's great. We've had one visit where we went out to Souk, which is an hour and a bit out of town, and we were 8 out of the 22 people in that lodge. And some of us just decided to go visiting there one night. I didn't even know the others were going. But, we had nearly half the lodge room was just Britannia visiting.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's what it should be like. And, it used to be back in the day when, everything was horse-drawn buggies and all that kind of stuff, where guys would actually group together to go visit, right? And it seems for some reason they've drifted away from that. I've tried to encourage group visiting in our district. I run a text messaging program in our district.
What visiting program?
A text messaging program.
Yep.
So every Sunday or Monday, I send out a text message to the district that I think I got 98 people on the list. It tells them what's going on for the week and what to expect where. And in that I arrange carpooling from Kelowna to wherever we're going, and I try to encourage the brethren to do more visiting.
Right.
Because that's one of the only real ways you can expand your circle of friendship and use the brotherhood to do that, right? I think this is the best way to go, is to just get out there from the time they're active. Now, the other thing is, I'm going to segue somewhat. I also am the guy that runs the 6 steps to initiation in our lodge. Good. And when guys come in, I find out why they're joining. I'd say 75% say they don't know anybody here, and they understand that we're good quality guys, and that's the kind of people I want to surround myself with, right? So I tell them straight out, you're going to come to lodge, you're going to join Freemasonry, and you're going to see a handful of guys in your own lodge. Now, as you know, in society, not everybody connects well with everybody. So if you really want to get the fraternal aspect out of lodge, be prepared to go to 2 meetings a week, minimum, right? And, it's not always going to be 2 meetings a week. Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 4, right? But you go to what you can and be active. And that's the real way you're going to get that benefit that this fraternity has to offer.
That's the message that I give any both seekers and young Freemasons. That it is not 3 hours, 1 night a month, or even 2 nights a month, but you need to put in, as you're saying, 2 nights a week on average to get it. And that's what I do. I get out about 8 times a month.
Yeah.
Lodge.
Yeah, and that's the only way. That's the only way it happens, is if you get your foot out the door and go, right?
I'm going to speak the great words of Freemasonry that every old past master ever in the world has said.
That's not the way it was done in my time.
Those are the second most popular words. You get out of Freemasonry what you put in.
Yeah.
That's true.
It is. And that's where I actually will often give people a ride. I've got the pleasure of being part of the team for an Ancient Third next Wednesday here at Hyder Lodge, and I'm an emulation person, because Australia is basically an emulation, or Victoria, Australia is emulation. So I joined an emulation lodge here.
I'm not going to be able to make that.
Oh,
it's my initiation into Eastern Star that day.
Oh, nice.
So I will be.
Oh no, they got him.
I'll be hanging out with the ladies.
Oh, enjoy yourself. Well,
instead of you boring men.
No. That actually the ancient third in full, and I won't pass any comment, but it's the one that needs the full 25 odd people to hold, is going to be here in Victoria on Wednesday night.
That's pretty cool, man. I really enjoy partaking in that degree. I used to play a couple of roles in that. Now I play, I think, 3 or 4.
Right.
And if I remember from what you were saying previously, you're given like 4 days to memorize your lines?
Yeah, something like that on average, yeah. But I've learned the lost word in Freemasonry, no. and so I've taken the stance where I know enough pieces that I'm willing to do any one of them, but I don't really have time to learn new stuff. So I've sworn off learning new work for years now, right? And so just before I'm going to Cuba, I find out that the guy who does the preamble in the 7th degree demitted, and now they have nobody to do it, so somebody's going to read it from a lectern. I said, not in my lifetime, right?
Well done.
So I took that preamble and to Cuba with me, and I learned that in Cuba during my holiday, so that the week I got back from Cuba, I could do that before I do the lecture in the 7th degree, right? And that's a really, doing those types of things is so important, right? But
I usually start learning my lines a month beforehand, but I really do learn them the 5 days before the meeting.
Yeah, pretty much.
And behind me here, I have, I won't actually unravel it, but I have the chart for Ancient Lodge's Entered Apprentice degree. And
cool.
I'm the junior deacon of an Ancient Lodge. I have to present the chart lecture. So the reason why I have probably a 100-year-old piece of paper from my lodge in my hands at my home is because I have to memorize like a 10-page monologue. And the master said, take this, you're going to need it.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing. At least he let you take it home so you could practice with the live thing, because it's really important to be able to know what you're looking at, know what you're pointing at, and do it well when you do it. But back to the visiting aspect, though, Dave. I'm going to suggest something for you, man. I don't know how many guys are active in your lodge, but even if you only got one or two on the bandwagon, if you could convince a couple of guys, even one, just to once a month take a trip in and visit another lodge, even if it happens to be the same lodge on a regular basis, right? Because that's the closest lodge that you can go to. Go visiting, brother. Get into the North Shore. There's a few lodges there, and experience it, man. Because you know what? To be welcome with open arms everywhere you go, and people not just shaking your hand, but they're hugging you because they know you, they like you, they've come to like the person you are, and they welcome you. It's no better feeling.
When I visit.
Anyway,
yeah. Well,
you're supposed to shower first.
For a step back for visiting to the North Shore, that some of the people I know that when they're EAs and fellowcrafts are a bit worried about visiting, unless it's actually a night of a higher degree, you're always welcome. And the other one is that for you, next time you're at your own lodge, find out where people are from and that say, hi, I'm thinking of visiting, and they'll actually make a point of being there to vouch for you. Because I've sat with you in open lodge.
Yeah, I've got a bit of a story. So as people who have listened to the podcast know, I'm an officer of two lodges. My mother lodge is Henderson Lodge number 84, which is an emulation lodge here in Victoria, British Columbia. I'm also an officer of Asher Lodge number 3, which is the exemplar ancient lodge for the jurisdiction, and that is up in Nanaimo. So what had happened was that I wanted to visit all the lodges, and my goal was, and it still is, I'm still missing a few, to visit every lodge on the island. Britannia Lodge is one of the ones I haven't visited yet.
Good thing you got a raincoat.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go and visit this Asher Lodge. I had heard a lot of really interesting things about Asher Lodge, that they had some of the best ritual in the jurisdiction, and that they were amazing with their history. Like, they were an incredibly old lodge, and so on and so forth. So I called up one of my friends, past master of my dad's mother lodge, which is Victoria Columbia number 1, who had relocated to Nanaimo. And I said, hey, brother, I'm thinking about going to this lodge. Would you be willing to go to this lodge with me and vouch for me? And he said, yeah, I don't normally go to that lodge, but they know me there, and I'd happily come with you. So I went to that lodge maybe 4 times. I was still a fellow craft at this point in time. And literally the month after I got my Master Mason's certificate, not even my certificate, the degree, the month after I got my degree, I sent in an application for affiliation because I just loved that lodge so much. And I still love my mother lodge. I'm still active in my mother lodge, but having that second lodge, really, it's made my journey through the craft so much more. I've gained more light by seeing the different works, by really getting, like, when you visit lodges, sure, you get to see the work, it's presented to you, but when you become an officer, or even just you fill in a role in another ritual, you really sink your teeth into what that ritual is about. And I found that really has helped me learn more about what it means to be a Freemason.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I want to talk about, my other story, is I touched briefly on that my best friend was the past provincial master counselor of Alberta, a chap named Eric Anerson. And I met him from visiting. I think when we first made contact, we both were put on a committee by the president of BC&Y Canada. We were rewriting one of the awards ceremonies. And then after enough time, I ended up going, and I think he came here and he visited here. And since then we've been the best of friends. So So not only through visiting have I basically found a second family in a second lodge, but I found my best friend. And really, I think that visiting is, as we've said throughout this episode, the backbone or the keystone of Freemasonry. Without visiting, Freemasonry, I don't think would stand the way that it is today.
So if I understand, you're a member of your mother lodge,
Yeah.
another Blue Lodge.
Yeah.
You're now a Mark Mason.
Yeah.
And you're going into, or you're just going to be joining the Eastern Star.
Yeah.
And was there another one there?
I've been invited to the Order of the Secret Monitor.
Okay, and there's that. And was there another one?
Aren't
you like working on like the kind of like the DMLA Canada?
I still am sitting on a couple committees there. Yeah.
And the other one that goes with
He's single. I get it.
The other one is his birthday is on March 26th. So this is less than 12 months from his first initiation in Craft Lodge.
Yeah. So glutton for punishment.
I also am one of the co-runners of this weird podcast on the internet.
Right.
Those whack jobs.
Yeah, I tell you. So speaking of the podcast, and looking on here, we got a couple of comments on there. The chicken. What happened to the chicken? Nicholas Biss wants to know.
I have no idea. I never even knew there was a traveling chicken until Nick Biss told me about it, like 5 months ago.
That came about, I think, when somebody lost where the traveling gavel was, the galloping gavel.
Yeah, well, I don't think the chicken is around anymore.
Is that a rubber chicken? I hope it.
Yeah, from what I understand, it's a rubber chicken. It started as a chicken, ended up being a chicken foot on a plaque.
Well, that sounds interesting.
Well, sounds like something Nick would do.
Yes.
Right? But yeah, visiting is I don't know. They call it the lifeblood of Freemasonry, but I totally enjoy every aspect and every benefit that it offers. It's really made my Masonic family that much more meaningful to me. And all I can say is I really encourage the brethren to get out there and visit as much as they possibly can.
So the couple of thoughts I've got is to warn the younger brethren that may be watching this. If you do go visiting, before you do, just go back over the work you had to do for your prove up for your first, second, and third degree. But if somebody says they'll meet you there and visiting, and they mightn't be, so somebody still might make you prove up. They don't want. I've never been asked for my obligation, but they'll ask you the questions that were around your prove up. Now, do not panic if you're. Let's make it a Canadian work and you're visiting an ancient and they are doing things slightly different. The people that are doing the testing of you are looking for your familiarity with the principles and concepts, not the exactness. Because one of the things that I love about visiting in BC is there is no wrong ritual, but there is an awful lot of different ritual.
Don't let the worshipful master of Asher Lodge hear you say that.
There is I believe there is no wrong ritual. That even, let's take it through, some lodges have 2 passwords at the third degree level, and a lot of them only have 1. So that you end up getting all the little things like that, or which foot you go forward on. Things like that all vary between lodges and even between emulation lodges.
Well, it doesn't matter which lodge you go to. There's only 1 foot to go forward on.
The second regular step in Freemasonry varies.
The second one does, yes.
Correct. And the third.
So we're almost at our hour-long mark. We have been listening to the feedback. People said they wanted longer episodes, so we've made a longer episode for you. And I think it's time that we do start winding down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite any last comments from our viewers in the comments section. And while we're waiting for those, I'm going to go over to Dave because he's been abnormally quiet in today's episode. And I want him to talk about stuff.
Talk about stuff. Well, from what I've understanding here is just on the like what we're talking about last time about memorizing ritual and how important it is to ingrain that within yourself. What I've realized from watching you guys and talking to other brothers that travel is that's also a good way of seeing the different perspectives of the same thing. Like you're talking about being a part of the ritual, watching it from the side, and it really helps you get a more full experience as a Mason. And I'm definitely excited to start doing that. You
should come visit one of my lodges.
Sure.
They're some of the best lodges.
Oh yeah.
The worshipful master of Henderson Lodge, he doesn't have a gavel. He has Mjolnir.
Has a what?
It is
a what?
Thor's hammer.
Oh, right, yes.
Mjolnir.
Does he have the iron gloves to go with it?
No, but I'm gonna get him them.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah, we could do a whole podcast on the symbolism of Thor's hammer and what it means.
I mean,
that's good times. I love that stuff.
So, Steve, do you have any ending comments here?
Hang on, I was just reading an email from Nick Besser. Ending comments from me. I don't know. Visiting, it's one of the best things I've had. It's enhanced my Masonic experience just as much as it did my DMLA experience. And, you know, the more we can get out and do those types of things and have more of the fun without the work, because, you know, at your home lodge, it's always work. There's work to be done, so you do it. But when you go visiting, that's generally the time that you have no responsibilities except to sit on the sidelines and enjoy the company of the brethren. Unless you go to one of those lodges that you frequent a lot and they say, hey, can you fill in here? Oh, this guy's not here. Can you fill in there? Oh, that's right, because you're a past master. You know that role. Oh, yeah, right. Okay. So, but on the flip side of that is the chance to help another lodge by filling in a chair. Happy to do it, right? The only time that kind of really bites, if you will, is when you invite somebody to come and visit your lodge or go somewhere with you, and then you end up sitting in another chair. You don't even get to sit with them the whole lodge meeting, right? But on the flip side of that, it's kept the sideline noise down. Right? That idle chatter that doesn't happen.
So River Peatman has just given a comment, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite our guest host to respond to that.
What do you think?
So he said that there's 2 chapters that meet on the same day. And
yeah, that I've got the problem here. You may or may not know that 1 and 21 are merging next year to become a new South Vancouver Island District Number 1. And we've got 9 lodges, and we have 2 pairs meeting on the same nights. And with that, I hope that the past masters can somehow or other organize between themselves so that we don't have any double ups across the new converged group. As you were saying there, River, the idea of one chapter meeting and doing an official visit to the other one is great. And I've seen that happen with United Peninsula going out to Mount Shepherd. And I've seen that with number 1 visiting Goldstream.
Yeah.
But I'd like it in the future, if I have any sway on things, is to get those lodges so they don't meet at the same night. There are enough nights in the month, even with the ancillary other orders, that we don't double up so people can enjoy the fellowship.
And another thing that happens is my mother lodge, Henderson Lodge, meets on the 4th Monday of every month. Now, the 4th Monday of December is not usually a day that people want to meet because it's usually right around Christmas or New Year's. So what we do in December is we move our regular meeting to the 2nd or 3rd Monday. I can't remember which one. And we have a very quick meeting in the small lodge room at our hall that we use because the main hall in Victoria has 2 lodge rooms. So we have a small meeting Well, Camosun Lodge, number 60, has their regular meeting in the big lodge. So we have a small meeting a bit early. We do our business. We open and close as quickly as possible. And then we all run over and go and bother Camosun Lodge, and we do a big official visit every December. This is what we do. So not that that's a usual conflict. That only happens that 1 month. But that could be a solution, is that you could do, like Alan was saying, a big official visit.
And for example, even this Wednesday, because we've had a whole series of movement of meetings because of the snow that Victoria, one snowflake and the whole city froze for 4 days.
There was a few more than one.
Okay, but Snowmageddon 2019, 4 lodge meetings got cancelled and moved. So Camosun is tiling at 7 o'clock to open and close to get the business done before joining Hyder at 7:30 on Wednesday. For the same sort of thing. But yeah, going back to the pure visiting side of it, yes, you can be traveling somewhere and visit, or you can, if you can get off your butt and organise a few of your brethren to do a visit, either up Island here, and going up to Port Hardy is a 5-hour drive. So it's not just a casual, let's go up to Port Hardy tonight, but Barkerville in the Kootenay, is it Kootenays? Anyway, Barkerville.
Yes, I think so.
Has a beautiful old Masonic Lodge building, and the Grand Master visits there on the second Friday in August. So 7 of us are riding up by motorcycle just to go be part of a fraternal visit.
Do you have a sidecar?
No, but you can sit on the pillion. Sit on the...
Can I
But so you can make it a theme visit to this beautiful 1860s gold mining town with a 150-year-old lodge building, when half the Grand Line will be there. And so we're just getting a group visiting from the island. Hope to see more people there for that visit.
Well, how many guys are going to go with you? How many guys are going to go with you?
Well, we've got 7 of us, 6 motorbikes with one riding pillion. A 72-year-old dad is traveling behind his son to go up on the back of his bike. We've got another 72-year-old that will be riding his own bike up there.
Cool.
You've got a spare seat. I'd like to ride up with you.
Okay. Talk about that offline.
What's the date of that again?
Okay. That's the second Friday in August.
Okay.
So, with that said, I'd like to thank Alan Bolitho for being our guest host today.
Yep.
It's super awesome. You're our first guest host that we've ever had, and we hope to have more, and maybe in the future you'd like to come back and join us again.
Tell me the topic, and probably will.
Now, with that said, our next episode is going to be this time next week, and we'll be posting more information about what that topic is going to be as soon as we can. We also have some really super secret special stuff coming up, which I don't want to get into right now. But we can
give them a date.
We can give them a date. So, Steve, why don't you give them that date?
March 11th. Tune in. Book off your lunch. Take an extra long lunch if you're a working man during the lunch hour, because we are going to have one of the most, arguably the most important person in our jurisdiction on our podcast.
You're getting me back.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm the guest host, actually. It's just gonna be me.
Okay.
In a wig.
Now, with that said, make sure you tune in that meeting. Thank you for watching the Working Tools Masonic podcast. If you liked joining us today, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell notification. Send us a like on Facebook, and if you ever have any questions or comments, please feel free to message us on Facebook.
Hey, did you know we now have 23 subscribers and we're only on our 3rd episode?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Let's keep that.
We're taking over the world now.
You got enough for a lunch meeting.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Working Tools Lodge.
Yeah, online. Digital Lodge.
So, anyway, with that said, I'll bid you all adieu. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Till next week.
Take care, guys.